Oh, man, SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Fleetway Market. Fuel up at Fleetway Market with 22 locations in Mississippi, including the Market Cafe in Gluckstadt. Delicious food, cold beer, to-go items. Jackson, Hattiesburg, Brookhaven, Dogwood, Madison, Gluckstadt. Fuel up at Fleetway Market. Want to welcome in Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, NFL Insider, PFF.com. And Steve joins us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. Hey, Steve, we were talking about Taysom Hill, and we kind of felt like his value is like slim to none. And we're trying to figure out the obsession that Sean Payton has with him. Can you help us out as far as what the PFF.com team quantifies or thinks that Taysom Hill does or doesn't bring to the game or to the Saints?
Yeah, it's a tough one to justify a lot of the money. Now, that when people were saying that he had like a 4-year, $140 million contract, that was all fake. You know, if you get the mainstream media folks saying stuff like that a couple years ago, that was all fake. I mean, they're not paying him nearly that amount. That was a lot of just salary cap stuff. This renegotiation, though, kind of hedging it between being the starting quarterback and being the tight end and H-back, I don't really know, to be honest. You know, I think offensively he's been in a decent change of pace and all that stuff. I mean, if you believe he's going to be your starting quarterback, then, you know, that's one thing. I think it honestly comes down to you're being creative in roster building and having a backup quarterback and a guy who can do other stuff, whether it is, you know, play tight end and play special teams. And maybe it's just that with the Saints, where they have been so cap strapped and they've always got to make these creative moves to, you know, fit guys under the cap, but that they essentially feel like they're solving a couple roster spots, a backup quarterback and you know, a backup tight end, and using him as part of the game plan. And he's a good runner. He's a guy that you can, if he's the starter, I think you could build the run game around him. He'll hit open throws for the most part on underneath stuff. Needs work on the deep ball. So he does have value, but I think the contract always, you know, screams, oh, this is our developmental starter, and we've never actually seen Sean Payton even commit to him. We'll see what happens tonight, but not even commit to him, whether it was this year or even, you know, at the beginning of this year, or even when, you know, Trevor Siemian was the starter for a few weeks.
Steve Palazzolo, PFF.com on the Out of Bounds show. All right, what do the Cowboys have to do tonight to get back on track? Because they haven't been playing well.
First off, who do you guys root for? What's the between Cowboys and Saints here?
Oh, all Dallas.
What do you guys do?
All Dallas. Dak Prescott trumps everybody in the league. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So they, you know, I don't know what Amari Cooper's going to be back. I don't know what his, you know, status is as far as snap count and all that stuff. Presumably CeeDee Lamb back and everything. I mean, just being somewhat full strength at wide receiver should be a huge boost for Dak and the Cowboys. I thought Dak was really inconsistent while I was in my turkey coma in the first half. You know, as I came out of my turkey coma, he did as well in the second half. I thought, you know, we timed that up well in the Thanksgiving game against the Raiders. He made some huge throws down the stretch. It was just a little too late. Dallas is going to be a little bit more consistent, and I think a lot of that is, you know, having their full cast and then having all those receivers who do make it so difficult to defend. So I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine in these coming weeks. The defense has, you know, been a little hit or miss in recent weeks, but they've got a lot of good pieces. I think the Cowboys should win this game here tonight against the Saints.
All right, Russell Wilson and Seattle and Pete Carroll, and I guess everything that's happened maybe, Steve, since Paul Allen passed away, and maybe there's been a power grab struggle, whatever, within the Seahawks organization. But I don't think anybody's happy up there. And the clock is ticking for Russell Wilson. I mean, he's still could have 6 more good years left. But still, athletes get paranoid about that stuff. What do you see playing out in Seattle with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks?
Yeah, it's you know, even if they had a good year, I think people would still be asking this question, right? Like if they had a good year and they go into the playoffs and lose in the divisional round or whatever, they've done in recent years, I still think this question would be posed because it was last year. There was a point last year where Russ, who's like the good citizen, never says anything bad, actually, criticized some people. So clearly there were some issues there, and this year just makes it that much worse. Sitting at 3-8, you get the injury. Russ clearly hasn't been the same guy throwing the football since coming back from the injury. I don't think they've taken to this new offensive system. The system was supposed to open up a few more easy throws, kind of take a little pressure off Russell Wilson so he doesn't have to play hero ball all the time, which he's good at, but you just don't want to rely on that all the time. And so there's just a big disconnect everywhere. And I think the bottom line here is, Mina Kimes, I heard her say this on ESPN, and it just, echoes what I believe as well. The roster's just gotten worse. In recent years, they haven't drafted well. They haven't, they've given up multiple first-round picks for Jamal Adams. They're in line to have the number 4 overall pick right now, but it's the Jets. It's the Jets pick. The number 4, they could have Matt Corral. They could have Matt Corral going to Seattle. But instead, they kind of went all in on a roster
on a
that
safety.
On a safety, right? And he was a very good safety with the Jets, and they haven't gotten their value on him in Seattle, either the way they've used him or he's just regressed a little bit. So there's just a lot of issues. Basically, the roster has gotten worse. Russ, when he was playing at an elite level, could bail them out. He hasn't played at an elite level since week 10 of last year. And so maybe it is time to just kind of start over because Seattle doesn't have the draft capital to even really improve the roster a ton this offseason. A lot of moves have to be made there.
Yikes. That doesn't sound good. Okay. By the way, if I had to bet $100 right now, Steve Palazzolo, with the Lions at number 1 and the Texans at number 2 in the draft, I would say Corral's off the board in one of those 2 spots. All right, we'll keep moving. What are you seeing from my guy Aaron Rodgers as far as his play and what he's doing well and maybe what he's not doing well?
Yeah, I mean, he's been really good in most games this year. He had that week 1 game against the Saints, and then when he did, against Seattle a couple weeks ago, when he did come back off the COVID list, he didn't look great. But for the most part, he's been really good. I thought last week against the Rams, he's missed a few more throws this year than he has in the past, but overall, just running a really good, efficient offense. I thought he was awesome under pressure last week against the Rams. They did a really nice job compressing the pocket. They didn't really get to him as far as sacking him or anything, but Rodgers did a really nice job hanging in there, making big throws when they needed it. And it was such a fascinating game because it's, the Rams had all this hype and they have Matthew Stafford, and this was like the game that you're trading your first round picks for Matthew Stafford to win, right? You bring Stafford into Lambeau to go beat an Aaron Rodgers, and it just felt like Rodgers is still better and the Packers are still better, and they pulled away when they needed to. So Packers overall have been impressed with what they've done this year with all of their injuries, still playing extremely well. And, Rodgers is not playing at the level he did last year, but good enough, been one of the better quarterbacks in the league again this year.
All right. How wrong was I on Mac Jones, the former Alabama quarterback who is the starting QB for the New England Patriots at 8-4, and they go to Buffalo Monday night, in which could be a hell of a game. How wrong was I on Mac Jones, Steve?
You were pretty wrong. Now, all that said, I think you might be able to. It's going to be tough for him, I think, to look good on Monday night against Buffalo's pass defense, even though they did lose Tre'Davious White for the season, their top corner. I do think it might be tough for the Patriots to move the ball through the air. So you might have one more week to kind of say, told you so about Mac Jones. But overall, man, I think what we saw at Alabama, what we saw in the preseason is the guy makes lightning quick decisions and he throws the ball accurately. And, what I said during draft time was I was getting swayed by the Justin Herbert Allens and maybe the Patrick Mahomes of the world, the guys who didn't do it conventionally, who didn't maybe have the best accuracy in college, who liked to play outside of structure, not inside of structure. And I think all of that even soured me on what Mac Jones was doing at Alabama, which was better than what A.J. McCarron did, which I know was your comp. So I think Mac Jones just came in and did what he's been doing. It's just hit open throw after throw. And the Patriots have, a lot of their free agent signings. I thought it was a big year for them to just prove, look, we spent all this money. We have to get something out of them. They're just starting to really come together there. So it feels like this old school New England team with Mac Jones, leading the charge and doing a really nice job under center.
Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. Senior analyst, NFL. He is Steve Palazzolo. He's got the podcast. The man's everywhere. And obviously joins us most every Thursday at 8:30. He joins us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. I want to go back to a couple of coaches. Sean Payton, Pete Carroll, Mike Tomlin. Very accomplished, really good coaches. And probably where I'm going here, Steve, is it's not fair because everybody's compared to Belichick. But are they trending in the wrong direction? Or do you just chalk this up as, hey, there's the ebb and flow of the NFL?
I think it's the ebb and flow of the NFL. And you also listen to everybody you mentioned, right? Belichick has had Brady for his entire career. Tomlin has had Roethlisberger for his entire career. Pete Carroll has had Russell Wilson for all but 1-2 years of his Seattle career. And Sean Payton's had Drew Brees. I mean, the quarterback is the bigger equalizer than the coach. Now, of course, Sean Payton has a hand in developing Brees, and Belichick picked Brady and all that stuff. They're a part of it as well. But clearly, Sean Payton, there were a few weeks where Sean Payton looked like, wait a second, he's going to keep winning with Trevor Siemian. And so he was winning with Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian, all that. But he, kind of ran out of juice a little bit there. Payton, though, has done a really nice job of showing, no matter who you give me, Jameis too, for the most part, we could create offense and all that. So I think Payton's still great. Tomlin's got a tough situation, and I think he's still good overall. But he's got a tough situation. Like Big Ben just can't complete passes at a high level, and he's throwing the ball to the defense. I don't know what you do there. The roster is completely depleted in Pittsburgh. And then with Seattle, I'm kind of torn too. I do think Pete has been elevated by Russell Wilson in Seattle. On the other hand, again, the roster has just continued to get worse. So, it's everybody's a bit of a product of who they get from a, on-field talent standpoint. But I think all of those coaches have shown they can win, they can create that winning environment, but it's a lot easier when you either have a high-end quarterback or you just at least have that high-end quarterback playing at a high level. And now we're seeing all those guys, not necessarily have that. So it's a little bit harder to stand out, from the rest of the pack.
All right. So that's why Aaron Rodgers has won with 3 different coaches. He's just that good, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
I mean, the quarterback's just the biggest driver. I mean, was anybody saying that Bruce Arians is one of the best coaches in the NFL? Everybody thought he was a good coach, but Tom Brady goes over there, they win a Super Bowl, and they're 8-3 again this year. I mean, the quarterback dictates so much. Obviously, Belichick is offsetting that narrative a little bit this year because he's got a rookie quarterback and he's built such a good all-around team. But a year ago, it was like, wait a second, Brady goes to Tampa, they win a Super Bowl, the Patriots fall apart. Obviously, Brady's the driver. It's always a bit of both, but the quarterback is the bigger driver. And then, when it comes to wins and losses, obviously you're seeing that with Brady, you're seeing that with Aaron Rodgers, of course, as well.
Okay, so we talk about the trend, right? I mean, the quarterback pushing the ball downfield, going vertical, going horizontal, and so on. Is there anything else y'all are talking about in the quote-unquote Pro Football Focus, PFF, incubator? Where are we? What do you think the next or have we just now scratched the surface on more and more people wrapping their brain around going all in on the passing game? Steve?
Yeah, well, I think what's interesting is the way teams have started to adjust to Patrick Mahomes and to Josh Allen and even Brady and the Bucs. More than ever, teams are sitting in too high safety shells and inviting teams to run. And I think that's a big part of why you see the Chiefs not nearly as explosive as they've been in recent years and, not as good offensively. So I think, yes, the quarterback is the biggest driver. But we're at this point in the NFL where I think you do need more answers, right? If the defense is saying, here's 6 in the box, I mean, it's looking a little bit like a college game where, Mike Leach's run game has always been, I'm only going to run it if it makes sense mathematically. If you put 5 guys in the box, I'll run it. It's better than passing. Other than that, I want to chuck it around the field. And there's elements of the NFL where that's true, where passing is more efficient than running until they invite you to run the ball. So I think what we're finding is the quarterback's the biggest driver. And if you have a good one like Mahomes or the way Josh Allen's been playing or whoever, it's going to open up the other parts of the offense, and you have to be able to execute those parts of the offense. And I think the Chiefs are at this bit of a crossroads offensively, seeing how they adjust to that. The Bills have been at a bit of a crossroads, seeing how effective their run game can be. It was good against the Saints for the most part. So I think that's one of the interesting strategic elements of the NFL, where the teams have to adjust. I mean, you have to adjust to what defenses are doing around the league.
All right. If you could draft one quarterback in the NFL right now, who would you draft for the next? I mean, the NFL, it's a short deal. Everybody's trying to win right now. So I'm talking about 3 years.
Tom Brady for the next 3 years? Definitely. No, I mean, it'd have to be Mahomes still.
Okay.
He's not playing great football right now, but his track record is so strong. Josh Allen would be intriguing for the upside. I've always thought Lamar is intriguing because the floor is high because of the rushing ability. Even if Lamar doesn't have a good game throwing the ball, he could still create on the ground. And I still think Brady's playing at a high level right now, even at 44 years old. But I probably wouldn't draft him for a 3-year window right now. But I would still lean on Mahomes because we had 3 elite seasons from him, and this year's a down year. But he's definitely at a point where they need to figure out what are the adjustments for the Chiefs, the offense, and for Mahomes. So that'll be interesting to see the rest of the year here.
Palazzolo, Steve P. on the Out of Bounds show and the Bell's Two-Hearted L guest line talking NFL, mostly QBs. Blake?
Yeah, so you've mentioned countless times on the show that the QB is the secret weapon. So I'm looking at this NFL draft order, and I see 2 of my most hated teams in the NFL up there in the top 10, the Giants and the Eagles. Either, neither, both get a new quarterback for this draft cycle, or Daniel Jones and Hurts the answer moving forward in those programs, Steve?
I think, man, my Hurts is like a roller coaster right now. As soon as you think he might be the guy for the Eagles, it's like last week happens, and it was rough. I do think there'll be a new regime in New York that will not want Daniel Jones. I think the Giants are going to get a quarterback. I think the Eagles, with three first-round picks, could talk themselves into building around Jalen Hurts for a couple more years on a rookie contract and using those picks elsewhere. But I'll lean toward they both draft QBs. I do have concerns, though, that, who are the QBs? Is Matt Corral head and shoulders above everyone else? Are these guys better than last year's prospects?
Yes.
Last year's prospects are struggling. So are they better? I mean, because I don't think they'll be perceived as better.
Really?
Group. I mean,
I'm not an expert at all, okay, but I look at Matt Corral. Outside of Trevor, I guess. But Trevor didn't have to elevate like Corral does in the toughest division and all of the most physical, the best recruiters, all that. But, I mean, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Mac. I mean, I know Mac's playing well, and I can't remember the other one. I'm just like, it looks like a no-brainer to me that he's more talented than these guys. Outside of, I guess, Trevor because of
perception. The perception last year was Trevor's generational. And then nobody questioned the Jets taking Zach Wilson at 2 for the most part. And then, he looks like Aaron Rodgers, and he's talented and this and that. Trey Lance is 20 years old with a ton of talent. And then Mac Jones is productive, and Justin Fields is kind of a combination of all those guys. From a perception standpoint, I think people are going to like last year's class than this year, because this year it's like, well, Matt Corral's a little short and a little unorthodox, and Sam Howell's a little short, and all of a sudden he's a fullback this year. North Carolina hasn't been as consistent throwing the ball. Malik Wilson is a project. Malik Willis. I mean, so all these quarterbacks this year, I think, are coming in with more question marks. Now, they could be better. Historically, we know that. Predicting this stuff is a challenge. But I think the perception is going to be this is a down year for quarterbacks. And if last year's guys are struggling, what's going to happen with this year's guys? And I think that's what the NFL is going to feel. And you're going to have more like defensive players go in the top 10, much more than you saw last year.
Ooh, I think that's a bad move. See, I think Corral is head and shoulders above everybody else. He may not be Trevor, although that's what.
Sure.
I mean, he's a combo of Mahomes, and he's not as big. Kind of Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, because he's so dynamic. He's got a huge arm, and yet he can hurt you with his feet. To me, isn't he what people are looking for this day and age?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I really grind the film on Corral, I'll give you my final take.
Sure.
And I really go
February,
throw by
March.
throw
I get it.
on everything. Yeah. And hopefully a little bit sooner, because the discussions are fun. But, yeah, I mean, look, you want to have a combination of that. Again, last year at this time, we're saying, you got to have that. You got to have this Mahomes stuff. You got to have this outside the pocket stuff. But now it's like, now they're going to be like, well, you got to work within the offense. Look what Mac Jones is doing. You got to hit open throws. We'll see how that goes. But I think Corral's probably the best. From what I've seen, I do think he's probably the best all-around prospect of the bunch. But again, I just think the overall class, people are going to think is a little bit weaker, right or wrong. But it will be interesting because the Giants, they have the 2 picks, and the Eagles have multiple picks. I mean, it's going to be interesting at the top for sure, the teams that need quarterback.
All right, did I miss anything? Like NFL, big topics, trends, a quarterback I didn't ask you about? What does anything jump out at you as far as, your discussions within the PFF.com bubble the last week or so?
I can't remember how many times I've said if I've said this with you guys or not. I always envision this world where Brady's gone and Rodgers and Breeze and all those guys are gone, Peyton and whatever, and there's really no dominant quarterback. And if Mahomes comes back down to earth, which he's done this year, we are in for a fascinating time in the NFL, where I think most years might feel like this year, where you just don't know. Dak could go on a Super Bowl run, or Justin Herbert could go on a Super Bowl run, or Joe Burrow could go on a Super Bowl run. Like, we don't really know, but maybe they're not head and shoulders, in that elite quarterback group. So I think that's one of the things standing out to me. As some of the old guys go away, we could be in this incredible spot where QBs 1 through 15 are closer together than ever, and the season's going to feel like this, where you don't know who the best teams are.
I think that's where we're going, Steve. At least for
fun.
a little while.
I think it's fun. Yeah.
I do too.
It's a fun league to watch because you really don't know, and it's harder to analyze, and you want to know who's the best team, who's second, who's third, but it's all over the place right now. Who knows?
All right, would you take Mac Jones or Dak Prescott today?
Oh, Dak, definitely Dak.
All right, good.
So you're good there.
I didn't want to break up with you. It's so close to Christmas, but all right.
Yes, I'm back next Thursday because I said Dak. We'll see what happens tonight, though. Unless he blows it tonight. Look, if he blows it tonight and Max goes into Buffalo and carries the Patriots to a win, maybe we'll revisit this in a week. But
oh God, let's not. Let's. Wow. All right. Be good, man. We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Always appreciate it.
That's Steve Palazzolo, our NFL insider, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. And he joined us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line in Sal and Mookie's in Madison. Right there by Kroger and Home Depot, Colony Crossing. Sal and Mookie's in Madison has Bell's Two-Hearted Ale on tap, on draft. And pair it with a delicious slice of pizza or some game day wings. The Out of Bounds Show is also brought to you by Cypress Depot, the leading supplier of cypress and hardwoods in the Southeast. Cypress Depot, located in Ridgeland. They do amazing things as far as residential and commercial. Check out their website, cypressdepot.com. That's cypressdepot.com. BreezyOaksRanch.com in the house in 20 minutes.